Session 24, Developing a Success Personality.
The great steel magnate, Andrew Carnegie, who accumulated a fortune of over $500 million at the beginning of this century, starting as a penniless immigrant, once said that I will pay more for the ability to get along with others than for any other single skill. And today, in our society, your ability to get along with other people, your social intelligence, is the most valuable, most precious single asset that you have. Not only in terms of your career, not only in terms of your marriage and your relationships, but in terms of your own mental well-being. In this session, we're going to talk about developing a success personality. We're going to talk about developing the quintessence of mental health, which is a positive personality, a positive mental attitude, the kind of person that everybody likes to be around, the kind of person who is welcome everywhere. We said very early in this seminar that 85% of everything that you ever accomplish in life will be as a direct result of how well you get along with other people. That today, even the biggest companies in America are hiring on the basis of personality and attitude rather than on the basis of grades, proficiency, skills, and experience. Why? It's because if the person has the right personality skills, they can learn anything else they need in order to be successful. But if the person has all the skills in the world and a lousy personality, there's no way that they can take the responsibility of changing it. So 85% of our happiness in life, according to the research, comes from happy involvement with other people. Also, 85% of all of our problems in life come from unhappy involvement with other people. The other 15%, in case you're interested, comes from achievement. So it is possible for us to get a certain amount of satisfaction in life from achievement, from success, from making money, building businesses and careers and so on, but most of our happiness is going to come from our relationships. So in this session, we're going to show you how you can dramatically improve the quality of your relationships doing some very, very simple things. We know with regard to your relationships that there is a direct relationship between how well you get along with other people and the health of your personality. In fact, everybody wants to have a more healthy personality. So let's look at how you measure healthy personality. What are some of the simple measures? Well, we've talked about several of them in the course of this seminar. Number one measure of healthy personality, of course, is how much you like yourself. How much you like yourself is the core of your personality. People who like themselves a lot have very healthy personalities. Number two measure of healthy personality is how much responsibility you accept. People who accept a lot of responsibility for themselves, who look upon themselves as being the key agents in their lives, people who refuse to blame other people, have very healthy personalities. Another example of healthy personality is how easily you forgive. One of the things that we know is there's a direct relationship, one-to-one relationship, between how freely you forgive and forget when somebody hurts you and how healthy your personality is. Number four measure of healthy personality is what is called positive expectations. The degree to which you look for the good in everything and everybody around you. People who have a propensity to look for the good are truly healthy people. And the fourth measure, or the fifth measure of healthy personalities, what we're talking about today, is how well you get along with others. How well you get along with others. As a matter of fact, you really cannot have a healthy personality in isolation of your relationships with other human beings. Wonderfully enough, there is a law of reciprocity in this, is that the more you like yourself, the more you like others. The more responsibility you accept, the better you get along with them. The more you freely forgive and forget and refuse to hold grudges, the more it improves the quality of your relationships. The more you look for the good in people and situations, the better you get along with yourself and them. And the better you get along with other people, surprise, surprise, the more you like yourself. So it's a wonderful little series of reciprocal relationships. And this brings us to an important law, one of the last laws we'll talk about, probably the last. It's called the law of indirect effort. And the law of indirect effort simply says that in our relationships with other people, we have a tendency to get the things that we want indirectly faster than directly. Now I can give you a very simple example. If you try to go after things directly in your relationships, often you'll be frustrated, often you'll be humiliated, you'll be embarrassed, and so on. Let me give you a couple of examples. For instance, if you want to impress other people, okay? You want to impress other people? Have you ever tried to impress someone else? Somebody you thought was important or valuable and you tried to impress them? Have you ever tried to impress someone else? What you end up doing is exactly the opposite. But the way that you impress other people is simply this, is be impressed by them. Be impressed by them. If you want other people to be interested in you, what is the way, using the law of indirect effort, what is the way that you get people to be interested in you? Is, of course, be interested in them. If you want people to like you, what's the best way? It's to like them. If you want people to respect you, what is the best way? It's to respect them. In every case, this law of indirect effort works in building our human relationships. One final point. We've talked about some of the mental laws. I'd like to just refer you to three. One is the law of sowing and reaping. The law of sowing and reaping says the quality of your relationships, what you are reaping in your relationships at any given moment, is a result of what you have sown in those relationships. What you are getting in your relationships has very little to do with the other person or with fate or with background or nature. What it has to do with what you've sown is with what you've sown. Law of correspondence says that your external world will correspond to your internal world, as within so without, especially in your relationships. And of course, the law of attraction says you always attract to you people who are very much like you are inside. If you want to change the quality of your relationships, the starting point is to change the quality of your relationship with yourself, and your external relationships will mirror that. Now, when we talk about this, how well you get along with others, let's show a very, very simple graph. And this is the graph of human personality, from the most introverted to the most extroverted, or if you like, from the inner-directed person to an outer-directed person. And the person who has a truly healthy personality can get along with a great variety of people going from the median. And the median, of course, is the average personality, not introverted or extroverted. Now, we can superimpose on this, I guess this is the center, we can superimpose on this another graph. And this is the graph of self-esteem, from high self-esteem to low self-esteem. And we find a very interesting thing, and this graph is my own creation. We find that the graph is like this, that if you have a low level of self-esteem, say down here, you don't particularly like yourself or you have feelings of inferiority or negativity, then the number of people that you can get along with will be limited to people who are pretty much in the middle of the spectrum. People who have, if you might call them, very easy to get along with, neutral, bland personalities. However, as you go up the ladder of self-esteem, as you like and respect and accept yourself more and more, the number of people that you can get along with expands. As your level of self-esteem goes up, you can get along with more and more people across this spectrum, if you like. And as you get to the point where you have high levels of self-esteem and self-acceptance, you find you can get along with almost anybody that you meet. And since, of course, the great business of life is getting along with as many people as possible, because the more people you can get along with, the more opportunities you have to live an interesting, fascinating, exciting life. Wonderful thing is, as your self-esteem goes up by working on yourself, the quality of your relationships with others expands. So what is the key to raising your own self-esteem? Wonderfully enough, because of the law of reciprocity, every single thing that you do that raises the self-esteem of someone else raises your own self-esteem at the same time. That means you cannot do anything genuinely kind or generous to raise the self-esteem of other people without raising your own at the same time. If you want to have a truly healthy personality, then you use the law of reversibility. The law of reversibility, in one of its applications, is simply this, is that everything that you do to boost the self-esteem of others boosts your self-esteem simultaneously. And so that what we're going to look at in the rest of this session are what are some of the things that you can do to raise the self-esteem of other people and simultaneously raise your own so that you become a healthier personality. And by the way, there's a direct relationship between happy involvement with other people and long life, health, energy, vitality, resistance to disease, longevity, and everything else. And the key to raising the self-esteem of others is to make others feel important. Make others feel important. This is and always has been the key to successful human relationships. Mary Kay Ash has a beautiful little analogy. She says she imagines that every person she meets has a sign around their neck that says, "Make me feel important." Every person she meets has this sign that says, "Make me feel important." And what she does is she responds to that sign. Make others feel important. Treat others well. Make them feel important. And surprisingly enough, you will feel important too. The reciprocal principle works. Now, how do we make others feel important? Number one, top of the list, is eliminate destructive criticism. Eliminate destructive criticism. There is nothing that causes a person's self-esteem to go down faster than destructive criticism. Remember, it is destructive criticism in childhood that sets us up for fears of failure, fears of rejection, feelings of inferiority, inadequacy, undeservingness, guilt, and everything else. And most of us are still struggling to get over those feelings because of the inadvertent remarks and comments that our parents made to us when we were young. So eliminate destructive criticism. Never criticize anybody because it devalues them. It kicks the chair out from underneath their self-esteem and makes them feel terrible. Just doing that, making that one change in your life, eliminating destructive criticism, will make you a far more attractive person than you can possibly imagine if you have a tendency toward criticism. Number 2 is be agreeable. Be agreeable. Be agreeable, that means don't argue. I remember when I was a young man, I was very fast-mouthed, if you like, and I used to win arguments. I used to win any argument. I would do my reading, I would do my research, and I would be excellent. I got to the point where nobody could beat me in an argument. You know something? I also got to the point where I didn't have anybody to argue with. I got to the point where nobody wanted to talk to me. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with me. I never got invited to anybody's house. People wouldn't play with me at school because I was always arguing, and even though I was winning, I was losing. So don't argue. And a way that you avoid arguing is a very, very simple technique. It's this. It is try first to understand. Rather than to be understood, use this law of indirect effort and try first to understand the other person's point of view. What is it that causes the other person to think and feel the way they do? If you disagree with them, the natural tendency of the immature personality is to try to overwhelm the other person with argument. However, the tendency of the mature personality is to take the time to try to understand why the other person thinks and feels the way they do. It could very well be that their reasoning is superior to yours. At the very least, there's a beautiful line that says, "A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still." One of the most important principles in the development of human personality is the principle of non-resistance. The principle of non-resistance was, if you like, brought to a head by Mahatma Gandhi in India this year, or in this century, when he was able, if you like, to defeat the entire British Empire and take India out of the empire and put it under home rule simply by a process of non-resistance. Jesus said in the Bible, he said, in the New Testament, he said, "Agree with thine adversary quickly." Now, there's several reasons for this. The number one reason is the very best way to keep a positive mind, to be enthusiastic, to be liked, and to like other people is not to get into arguments with them, to do everything possible to avoid an argument. When I first got married, I found that the natural tendency for people when they live together is to get into arguments because you disagree about times and things and so on. But I also found a very neat little thing that has served me well, and that is to agree quickly. If when you see an argument coming, back off from it, agree, and try to see the other person's point of view. The place to start with being agreeable and refusing to criticize is where? Of course, it's at home. The interesting thing is, and Emmett Fox says it beautifully, he says, "If you must be rude to strangers, but save your company manners for your family." Naturally, we have a tendency to go out and be very polite to people that we've never seen before and will never see again, and then we come home and we criticize and complain and argue with the people that we love the most. All right, the third principle in making other people feel important, now you don't criticize, now you don't argue, you're now a pleasant, positive personality. The third thing is acceptance. The third behavior. Now, acceptance satisfies one of the deepest of all subconscious cravings. Remember, when we come into the world, what we want more than anything else is to be accepted by our parents, to be unconditionally loved and approved of and accepted by our parents. And when we grow up as adults, we still need that love and approval. And the way that we convey acceptance is very simply this: smile. Whenever you smile at another person, you convey acceptance. As a matter of fact, work in interpersonal psychology and interpersonal dynamics suggests that when two people meet for the first time, and every subsequent time, the very first thing that takes place is a relationship of acceptance or non-acceptance occurs. It's conveyed by body language, by facial expressions, by tone of voice, but until that relationship is established, no other communication takes place. And you can trigger that relationship just simply by smiling and unconditionally accepting another person, no matter who they are. Step number 4 is appreciation. Appreciation, like acceptance, whenever you engage in any kind of appreciation, you raise the self-esteem of the other person. When you smile, by the way, some interesting research seems to suggest that when you smile, not only do you cause the other person to feel positive, but the effort of smiling actually triggers endorphins in the brain and gives you a generalized sense of well-being. And they say even an insincere smile is better than a sincere frown. So smile. Force yourself to smile, and you will find that you can act your way into feeling like smiling just by making a habit of smiling at other people. With regard to appreciation, how do we express appreciation? We use the word thank you over and over again. Saying thank you to your spouse, saying thank you to your children, saying thank you to your coworkers and your subordinates, saying thank you to people in restaurants, saying thank you on a regular basis when you feel it. Expressing gratitude raises people's self-esteem like the mercury in a thermometer on a hot day. And you'll find that the most powerful men and women, the most successful men and women, tend to be very gracious and they tend to be very courteous. The television characterizations of men and women who are powerful but who are peremptory and push people around are not very close to the real world, because people become powerful and successful to the degree to which they get the cooperation of other people. And people only have a tendency to cooperate with others if the others are the type of people that they like to work with. So be gracious, be courteous, be appreciative, say thank you. Thomas Carlyle once said that you can tell a big person by the way they treat little people, and that's very true. Number 5 is admiration. Admiration means admiring the traits of another person. If the person is industrious or punctual or hardworking or accurate, or admiring the possessions of another person. You see, we get emotionally involved and bound up in our characters and our personalities. And when somebody recognizes and acknowledges it and admires it, we feel tremendous. We get caught up in our possessions. We're proud of our homes, our cars. We're proud of our watches, our shoes. We're proud of our children. We're proud of our offices. And if a person says, boy, that looks nice, or that's a great looking car, or that's a beautiful house, or this is a lovely living room, or that's an excellent suit, anything that we say, as long as it is sincere, and never say anything that's insincere, because people are very, very smart. They can detect insincerity. Remember, Abraham Lincoln said, everybody likes a compliment. Everybody likes a compliment. I have worked with billionaires, and I have worked with very powerful and successful heads of large corporations and conglomerates, and I have found that saying something that I truly feel that is complimentary to them about themselves, their businesses, their work, and so on, is always responded to as positively as if you were admiring the trait or possession of someone who had low self-esteem. Sometimes people who have the highest self-esteem and success are the ones who are most in need of admiration and appreciation. Now, the sixth thing that you can do to raise the self-esteem of others. And remember, every time you raise somebody else's self-esteem, you raise your own. Every time you increase the health of somebody else's personality by the law of indirect effort, you increase the health of your own personality, is approval. Approval satisfies one of the deepest cravings of the human psyche, the craving to be valued, the craving to be valuable. In fact, one of the definitions of self-esteem is the degree to which an individual considers himself to be praiseworthy. A person who considers himself to be praiseworthy has high self-esteem. So when you give approval or praise, it's been demonstrated. I think it was Napoleon who said, I have made an incredible discovery. Men will die for ribbons. In other words, he found that soldiers who would not give their life for any amount of money would risk their lives in battle for the praise and approval represented by the ribbons and the medals that he handed out. Keys to approval. Number 1 is be immediate. The closer the praise is to the thing that you praise, the more likely it is the person will repeat it. If you want your children or your employees to continue doing something, as soon as they do it, say, boy, that's a good job. Number 2 is be specific. Say, boy, you did a wonderful job on that lawn, that house, that letter, whatever it happens to be. The more immediate and specific the praise, the more rapidly it raises self-esteem, the more likely it is that the behavior will be repeated. And third of all, be public with your praise. Whenever you give recognition in public, it doubles or triples the impact, because the effect of other people's opinions on our behavior is tremendous. In fact, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that we are who we are and we do what we do because of the way we think other people think of us. We're strongly affected by other people's opinions. All right, number 7 is attention. Now, attention is one of the most powerful ways to raise self-esteem. Attention means listening. Why is attention and listening so powerful? It's because we always pay attention to that which we value, and we always ignore that which we do not value. So if you want to tell a person that you value them, that they are in effect valuable, pay close attention to them, listen to them, spend time with them. Now here are some of the keys to attention. Number 1 is listen attentively. Listen attentively. Listen without interruptions. Listen patiently. Listen closely. Number 2 is pause before replying. Pause before replying. Don't interrupt. Let the person say everything that they have to say and pause. Wait. Show them that you are really considering what they're saying. Number 3 is question for clarification. Instead of rushing in to speak, question to clarify what the person has said, which is a way of telling them for sure that you're really listening. And here's the best of all questions. How do you mean? When you're listening to a person speak and you want to fully understand and you want to tell them that you're listening, say, how do you mean exactly? And ask for them to explain to you clearly. And finally, remember the boomerang. And the boomerang says simply this. It says that any genuine emotion expressed by you toward any other person is going to boomerang back on you. Just like the law of sowing and reaping, the law of cause and effect, the law of attraction, the law of correspondence says that any genuine emotion, now that's a genuine emotion. In other words, if you say something positive about someone else, it's going to go out to that person and it's going to come back and it's going to boomerang on you. So say only good things. When you talk about other people, talk about them as though what you were saying was going to be printed in the paper. When you think about other people, send out positive thoughts and positive ideas. Think all the time about how you can make other people feel important. Treat other people as though they were the most valuable people in the world, because to them, they believe they are. And the final rule with regard to superior human relations is what we call the golden rule. The rule simply says, love your neighbor as yourself. Like your neighbor as yourself. Treat your neighbor as yourself. Ask yourself in any situation, how would I like to be treated in this situation? Ask yourself, when you're in a difficult situation with someone or an argument or a disagreement, say, if the conditions were reversed, how would I like to be treated in this situation? And here's something that you can do. Pick a role model. Pick the person that you admire more than anybody else in the world in terms of their personality. And whenever you're in a situation with someone else, pretend you are like that person. Many years ago, when I was traveling in Africa, I worked with Dr. Albert Schweitzer, one of the most beautiful men who ever lived. And so very often when I'm in a situation with other people, I think, how would Albert Schweitzer act in this situation? Or I think, how would Jesus of Nazareth act in this situation? And if you use that as your role model, and if you use the credo of making other people feel important as your guiding light, you will develop a success personality that will lead you to accomplishing everything that you want in life in a world filled with other people.